Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 23 of Days Gone By, the review series for Gran Turismo's vintage and classic car selection, the vast majority of which are classics. We do, as always, need more vintage cars on Gran Turismo, but they don't seem to have a huge appreciation for those cars on the game. There have been some, but very, very few, which is a shame, and hopefully that will change as we progress through Gran Turismo in the future. But we do nevertheless have a pretty strong selection of classic cars. There's always room for improvement, of course, but they are strong nonetheless. And this particular model is one of the newer debuts of a classic car on the game, the Plymouth XNR Ghia. This is a very intriguing car, from the asymmetrical design to the fact that the engine is a lot smaller than you'd probably think, and that it has a very large price, but not necessarily a hugely impressive spec. At the same time though, its performance is a lot better than its spec would indicate. So it's a kind of car which almost juxtaposes unimpressive stuff with impressive stuff, and stuff which doesn't really make sense, and then suddenly it does. Such as the price. This car costs 1 million credits. That's not a huge amount for some concept cars, but for classic concept cars, that's quite a bit. Now there are some other classic concepts and prototypes on the game, such as the Abarth Biposto, but you can kind of understand why that car costs more. It's an Italian classic, it has an oddball design, it's very aerodynamically efficient. This car, on the other hand, yes, it is unique in terms of design, but why does it cost 1 million credits? Is it really that special? Well, yeah, it kind of is. Now, if I remember correctly, you actually can win this car in career mode. I may be wrong about that, but I think you can. And this car's main rival is probably the 1959 Corvette Stingray Racer, which will also be featured in this series. Now, the Stingray is significantly quicker than this car, but it's probably its nearest rival. They're both classic concept cars, kind of racing inspired, at least to some degree, and they're both speedsters, in effect. Very low cut window line, aerodynamic looking shape, and they look sporty. It's very clear that it's a high performance car, it's not some daily runabout by any means. Now this car, as I said, does have a significantly smaller engine than you'd probably assume that it would have. It's only a 2.8 litre, which is remarkably small for an American car, especially an American classic. But that 2.8 litre, which you can supercharge, can put out 525 horsepower. Now that doesn't break the bank. There are certainly more powerful classics than that, significantly more powerful, but for a 2.8 litre classic engine, that's not bad at all. As far as torque, it puts out 401 foot-pounds, which also isn't bad at all for that engine size, and it weighs in at 1,245 kilos, so it is heavier than the Stingray Racer, but still not too heavy. It is, after all, not an overly small car, so that weight isn't really bad. The horsepower per tonne isn't that impressive, 422, but given that it does have a little bit less power to work with, and as far as its PP, it's interestingly exactly the same as its peak power, 525. So the PP is reasonably high, not ridiculously so. It can compete to some degree in the higher PP levels, and in one particular way, straight line performance. This is a very fast car for its power, and also fast for a classic. Now, as I said, the Stingray Racer is significantly quicker, around 30 miles per hour quicker, in fact, at around 280 or more. This car, though, can do around 250 miles per hour, or even a little bit more. And that's not bad at all for its engine size, for its power, and for its age. That performance is not bad at all. Is it worth 1 million credits, though? That's the real question. It's an interesting looking car, it is a full premium, it can be painted, which is nice to know about a concept, and the performance is very strong for its power. At the same time as thinking that you probably would want more power, it's kind of cool that it doesn't have more power, because the performance that it has from its 525 horsepower actually means that this can prove highly useful, especially in classic car racing where power limiting is a factor. So for instance, say you're in a lobby where they don't allow you to have 7, 8, 900 horsepower. This car could come in very useful under circumstances like those. I'm not saying it's unbeatable, of course, but it could come in very useful nonetheless, especially on tracks that need that kind of straight line speed. Route X, Route 7, Monza, the Le Mans, and various other tracks. What about handling? Well, being a classic, it is a little bit more wallowy than you would probably like, but that can be ironed out pretty well by careful suspension setup. Stiffen up the springs and the dampers, lower the ride height to reduce body roll and lower the centre of gravity, and it handles well. Very well actually for a classic concept, because of course concept cars don't have the same kind of know-how and testing and rigorous development put into them as a production model is forced to. So often it could be easy for a concept to look great, but not necessarily deliver on that. This car actually does. It delivers really well, not just in its straight line performance, which is definitely its best point, but also in handling, where it's surprisingly good. Now, is it the best handling classic? No, definitely not. It's not even the best handling American classic. But the handling is passable, and it goes with the speed very well, meaning that you won't just dominate the straights, but you can actually maintain a potential lead through corners as well. It's not just a straight line missile that will immediately drop to the back of the pack as soon as you get to the first corner. So it's worth checking out if you fancy a change, and that's it for this episode. So I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.